Hello, everyone, and welcome to our KaiNexus Training Team Office Hours webinar, episode 26. My name is Adam Darnell, and I'm the Training and Enablement Manager here at KaiNexus, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Product Manager Ryan Rippey. We also have another very special guest today, KaiNexus Chief Revenue Officer, Jeff Roussel. Jeff, thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, for those of you new to our webinar series, welcome aboard. The way this works is we plan to take the next 30 or so minutes to dive into KaiNexus topic that we'll share with you all in just a bit. The purpose of these webinars is for us to review the hottest topics and latest and greatest features suggested by you, our customers. Before I reveal our topic today, let's go over some housekeeping items. The first being, this webinar is being recorded, so we'll go ahead and send out the slides and recording to everyone after the webinar. Also, if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to type those in the chat box. We'll do our best to answer those in real time as well, and we'll have some time at the very end of the webinar if there's time left over. All right, let's take a look at our webinar topic for today, notifications.
That's right, Adam, notifications. As I'm sure many of you have seen, KaiNexus automatically alerts you about any items that need your attention for a variety of reasons, letting you know right away what needs to be addressed as soon as you log into KaiNexus.
Excellent, thanks Ryan. Well, let's take a look at our agenda for today. So starting off, we're going to have some slides with Jeff on notification management. Then we're going into an intro of notifications within KaiNexus, touching on the notification window, working through notifications, and finally clearing notifications. But with all that being said, let me pass it over to Jeff to go through notification management.
Perfect. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. Hello to everyone out there, and I'm excited to go through this topic today. Ryan and Adam asked me to spend a little time with you guys to talk about the importance of notifications and the importance of having a good system for notifications. And it's something that's pretty personal to me. I have this belief that the most successful people work on the most important thing that they have on their list, and then they literally just do that over and over again. And where people fall down is when they tend to work on things that are not the most important thing for them. And so, yeah, I think it's important. I also think that the successful people I've been around, they just don't let things fall through the cracks for them. And just from a mindset standpoint, they tend not to succumb to the fallacy where it's someone else's fault if someone's quote unquote responsible for a task. I mean, the fact of the matter is we all have to get things done, and so we're responsible for those tasks. And so having a good system of notifications helps there. But let's talk a little bit about just my personal thoughts on why having a good system for notifications makes a huge difference. And so to me, the first part about it is it reduces stress, right? When you know that you have a good system where, one, you're going to work on the most important things, and two, things are just not going to fall through the cracks. Well, it's easier to sleep at night. I mean, it's easier to know that you've got a system in place to kind of guide your efforts. And so I just think that's huge, and I think it's just one of the more important parts about this. I also think it's very respectful. I know in the lean world, we talk about respect for people, and I think one of the ways we can show that respect is by having a system of notifications where we get our stuff done. You know, we live up to our promises. I also think that this applies to friends and family. I mean, I have one system of notifications personally and one professionally, but the fact that both are there means that when I have things to do, I get them done. And so I think it's an important component around that. It certainly can be a competitive advantage, whether you're looking at this as an individual and you're just trying to grow your career, or as a company and you're trying to wow your customers. Making sure that people are handling their task and managing their notifications is extremely important. I think having a good system helps you to build the right habits. We all, I think, want to have good habits around our task management, and so having a good system in place helps us to build those habits. I also think that when we do this well, it allows others to count on us, whether that be our boss or our coworkers or our customers. They know that when they ask us to do something, it's going to get done. And then lastly, I think this sets an example for other people to follow. I think if you do this right and you build kind of the diligence around your notifications, other people see that and they realize, I mean, they realize it's just a better way to do it, and they'll follow your lead. And so anyway, this was just a list that I came up with as I was trying to figure out, well, why do notifications matter? And why do having a good notification system, why does it matter for all of us? So the next thing I want to talk about is kind of how you might develop a good notification system and a habit around that. And I always go back to the golden triangle of business, and I've done this in a lot of our webinars, and the concept of people, process, and technology. And I strongly believe that in order to make changes and develop good systems like notifications, you really have to focus in all three of these areas. And so from the people side of things, I think this really comes down to the mindset that you choose. And you have to choose that you are going to be better at notifications, and then you have to hold yourself accountable to those behaviors. And so I think on the people side, it's something that we can all do. On the process side, quite honestly, to me, it's the discipline and the cadence that you have with notifications. I personally check mine every day, but some people might not need that. But I think you have to have that kind of disciplined approach to checking your notifications so that it can become a habit. And on the technology side, I mean, to me, you know, I have a few that I love. KaiNexus is one. I use an app called Todoist, and I use my inbox, and I use a technology called Boomerang. But I've kind of worked out a system where I can keep track of my notifications wherever I'm at, on whichever device I'm at, and that it's available to me all the time, and that I can kind of order my work properly so that I'm not just kind of working on the next thing in the list, if you will. So how I kind of learned about this, there's a web page out there called The Secret Weapon. I believe the link is www.thesecretweapon.org. And for me, it's been the best resource that I've found on this topic. I mean, I'll really not do a good job summarizing it, but it essentially says that you have to be able to capture tasks wherever you are, and then you've got to provide context to those. And what that does is it allows you to then work on things in priority order, so that you're not working on just the first thing in the list, and you're not working on the first thing that pops into your mind. But when you sit down to accomplish something, you're working on the most important thing that you've got to do. So if you guys don't have any experience with this, I use different technologies than what they say, but the concepts are the same, and it's really been a good model for me as I kind of work through my own notifications and try to improve upon it over and over again. So this slide, as I was creating it, it kind of rang true for me, because quite honestly, I have, and I still do sometimes, make the mistake of managing my notifications in the wrong system. And so what do I mean by that? So I think a lot of people manage notifications in their inbox. I see people where they've got just huge number of items in their inbox, and they try to move things in maybe in order, or they leave them unread, or whatever. And I just think that that's a problem. I mean, ultimately, you're not prioritizing the work. It's really hard to distinguish junk from things that actually need action, from things that you perhaps are just waiting on someone else. Tendency is to leave things in your inbox versus routing them to the right place. And quite honestly, I tried to solve it with folders, and it just was the wrong thing for me. So I feel like the inbox is just not the right system. Neither are to-do lists. You know, unfortunately, you're just kind of grouping one context in a to-do list. Sticky notes, I tend to put things in conspicuous places I show that here with kind of writing it on your hand. And again, you kind of do this on a really small scale, but those things are only available to you when you're in a certain location, and they're certainly not something where it's easy to capture ideas no matter what you're doing. And unfortunately for all of us, I think the worst place to try to manage the task and the items in a system is in your head. Our brains are fantastic at helping us to think through things, and they're awesome at helping us to solve complex problems, but they're just a terrible place to store lists. You know, it's very difficult to recall them when needed, and anyway, it's just not the right answer here. So to me, it's essential that whatever you use, you kind of get out of these systems managing your work and into a system that allows you to have some context around your notifications and your task items, right? So to me, it's important not just to know what it is that you're going to do, but to know who you're doing it for and where you're going to be when you do it, and when or in what priority order you need to do that task in. So for instance, you know, I manage my task, and I know what needs to be done when I'm sitting at my computer, and I know what needs to be done when I'm sitting at a phone, and I know what needs to be done when I'm running an errand. And so it allows me to kind of focus on the right things at the right time. I also have developed a prioritization scheme with high, medium, and low priorities so that I make sure that I'm working on the most important things. And even at KaiNexus, we're very adamant about keeping track of who we're working with, and it helps us avoid context switching. So whenever I have some items to work with Ryan or Adam, you know, I can sit down with them and we can run through each other's list, and we don't waste time just asking random questions throughout the day. So anyway, whatever technologies you choose and whatever system you develop, you should certainly make sure that there is context around your task, and that'll help you to work on them in the right order, which ultimately I think is what everybody's trying to do. I will say one of the things that I've become accustomed to is clearing my notifications in KaiNexus. We use KaiNexus internally. We call it eating our own dog food, and we run a number of projects in the platform. And as the Chief Revenue Officer, I have oversight into a large number of those projects. And so the notifications window for me is completely necessary. I've gotten into the habit of clearing my notifications every day. It takes me a few minutes, not that long, but doing so means that I can keep track of all the things that are happening, and I make sure that items don't fall through the cracks, and I can insert myself into a project as needed. Without the notifications, I feel like it would just be really tough for me to keep track of everything. And quite honestly, I have this theory that if all KaiNexus users would clear their notifications every day, that we would see huge increases in the number of completed items and the improvements that are made in the system. So my plea for all KaiNexus users is to clear your notifications, get into that habit, build the daily habit, and I think you'll be happier. And again, I think your stress level will come down around that. So as I kind of wrap up this part of the presentation, there was a quote that kind of stood out to me, and I'm just going to read it real quick. So when you can see everything on your plate at a glance, there is a sense of calm that results from knowing in what you are working on is what you should be working on. And again, I think that's where notifications come into play. We're trying to get to the point where what we work on is what we should be working on. And so that's my thoughts here. I really appreciate you guys letting me spend a little time with you. Thank you, Ryan and Adam, for this. And yeah, guys, thank you for being supporters of KaiNexus.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Perfect. So being a training team office hours webinar, we definitely want to get into KaiNexus a little bit here.
Yep. So let's hop over.
Let's jump out of the slide deck. You can go ahead and log into KaiNexus.
Into KaiNexus.
So 2 forms of notifications that you'll receive in KaiNexus. The first is the in-app notification, which we're going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes kind of talking through. The other is email notifications. So there are email notifications that the system will generate to the email address that you have associated with your KaiNexus account. To view your in-app alerts and notifications, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the blue notification bell at the top of the screen next to the search bar. And Jeff mentioned getting into the habit of clearing your notifications every day. The first thing that I personally do when I log into KaiNexus is immediately address my notifications.
Absolutely.
The little red badge that you'll actually see there in the bottom right-hand corner of the bell, this is displaying the number of notifications that we currently have. So if there's no number shown, that means you have no notifications that require your attention, meaning that everything is up to speed, or that you've gone in and built that habit of clearing those out. So in this case, let's say we're logging in for the first time today. I have 5 notifications that require my attention that I want to go ahead and address in the system. So let's go ahead and click in there. And Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing and how to work through this notifications window?
Yeah, absolutely. So this notification window, it's going to be essentially all the notifications that you have, whether it's coming from an item or any updates on really any of the improvement work that you are working on. So starting with the 3 check boxes at the bottom right-hand corner here, we see the flags, we see the bell icon, and we see the comments and updates. So starting with the flag, these are notifications that you receive due to your association with the item. And additionally, any new items that you requested to be notified about will be listed as a flag, regardless of whether or not you're on the team. Next up is alerts, which is the bell icon. These are notifications you receive due to a notification preference that was either configured by you or as part of one of your roles. And lastly, we have updates. So these are comments and timeline updates since the last time you viewed an item.
I think one of the important things to point out here, Adam, is that being able to filter through your notifications.
Absolutely.
So with those check boxes, as Adam's going to demonstrate, you can start to deselect some of these and reselect those to help cut through the clutter if you know you're looking for specific types of notifications on that window.
Absolutely. So you can really kind of drill down and grab the notifications that you might want to get your eyes on first. Another way of filtering is the change order. So by default, the notifications displayed are sorted newest to oldest, but I can click this icon here near the bottom left corner of the notifications window to flip the order so that the oldest entries are listed first. Simply click the button again to switch the order back.
I think one of the things here, Adam, is that, let's say I'm out of the office, I'm on sabbatical for a week, and I come back into KaiNexus. Whether I want to address the most recent notifications or if I want to play catch up on some of those things I missed out on in my time off, I'll go ahead and sort that, flip it so that the oldest are popping up so I can make sure that I address those first, since I don't want to be the bottleneck for anybody who might be waiting on me.
Absolutely. That's great practice when you're combing through those notifications. So let's kind of go through some of the notifications that we have here. As we said, we have 5 listed here, and I flipped it back into the newest first order. So starting with this one, I have move the trash can, a task that basically I'm responsible for, or this user is responsible for, and it's notifying me that the status has been changed to complete, and basically who did that. So Greg essentially completed this task.
I think the biggest thing with the completion too, Adam, is that on the task itself, if I am, in this case, responsible or the assigner, if I'm a team member and the task has been completed, I'll get that notification. But to take it a step further, in this case, the reorganized workstations is a project that I'm a team member on. And in fact, I think I'm actually the facilitator of that project. And so what the system will do is recognize that any of those tasks that are completed within a project I'm on, it'll go ahead and notify me of that through this in-app notification.
Exactly. Moving on down, we have an improvement notification. So we see that Greg updated the state of this improvement for Move the Printer. So it's a standalone improvement item here, and we see that he's updated the state. I can hover over this for more details, and it shows me that he updated the state to at risk in this case.
Got him. Moving the printer is at risk, Adam.
Right.
Gotta make sure we
high
address
risk
that.
scenario there, so gotta watch out. Moving on down, we have an overdue one. So hopefully we don't see too many of these when we're clearing out our notifications, but this is basically alerting us that this item has gone past its due date. So this was actually a few days ago. The due date was February 10th. It's now the 13th. So this is just kind of popping in to show us that let's jump into this item, see where the resolution phase is at and how we can start resolving this.
And I want to jump in here, Adam. We talked about how building the practice when you first log into KaiNexus of addressing your notifications. One of the other things we like to coach on in KaiNexus is run to the red.
Yep.
And so in this case, overdue items in the system are represented with that color red. In this case, we see the notification in here, but if you have maybe a card on a board that shows your overdue items, you definitely want to make sure to build the habit of addressing those so that you don't become a bottleneck and just making sure that everything is staying on schedule.
Absolutely, great point. Moving on down, we have a notification that I, as the user, was mentioned in a comment, and it shows the comment. So it looks like I was mentioned and asked how things were going on this particular improvement here by Greg. Now from here, we have the handy like and acknowledge feature, and of course I can click into the item to reply to the comment if need be, but this basically shows an update on a comment or timeline of the item. Lastly, we have a new improvement. So the inventory tracking tools, I've been made responsible, and then it showed all of the details of the improvement that Greg has updated. So it basically gives you a mini view of the timeline of the item and shows everything that's happened within this improvement.
I think one important thing to point out for any of our new users is as you're working through the notifications, we're kind of just going over examples of what you're going to see here. But of course, at any point, you can click into one of these items to see the details of the item.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a handy little pro tip as well, is that clicking into the notification will bring you directly to that item so that you can take the necessary action you need to based on whatever that notification was.
Exactly. So speaking of working through notifications and in the spirit of clearing them out, as Jeff said, that's our goal in the Austin office. To remove any of these, or to remove one at a time, we can simply hover over the notification and click the X here. So clear this flag. So I'll go ahead and clear the first one. That leaves me with 3. Now, to remove all, I can click the clear in the bottom right-hand corner. Now this is going to come up with a window. It's going to be clear all notifications and or comment updates. I can also select the clear all flags box as well if we simply want to remove all our notifications. So in the spirit of Jeff's presentation and getting to 0 notification box for the day, let's go ahead and clear these out.
You're all caught up. That's what you love to see.
Fantastic.
So at this point, if anybody has any questions on the notification bell, some of the types of notifications that you might receive, we've done a very brief overview of the notification window. Adam and I plan to spend some time on a future webinar going into more detail around other areas of KaiNexus that notifications come into play, such as managing your personal notification preferences for admin users that want to be able to set notification preferences for their users. If you ever want to send a notification at any point on an item itself, a lot of different ways to utilize the notification functionality in KaiNexus. But again, just really want to harp on building the practice of when logging into the system of going directly to that notification bell, clearing out those notifications, taking the appropriate action, paying attention to those overdue items, of course, as a side note. But that's really one of the most important things in KaiNexus is just building a habit around those notifications. So I don't see any questions coming in yet. I'll go ahead and start to wrap things up here. But thanks for the time today, everyone. We certainly hope that these webinars are valuable, and we appreciate your feedback. To check out all of our past webinars, head over to kainexus.com/webinars/office hours. Be sure to sign up for the next Training Team Office Hours webinar. That's actually going to be held later this month, and the topic will be the basics in KaiNexus. So we'll touch a little bit more on notifications. We'll also just go over basic workflow, basic terminology. Definitely for new users and even existing users, you're going to want to make sure that you tune in for that.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions or need assistance with configuration of the features you saw here today, please reach out to your KaiNexus customer experience lead. In the meantime, we encourage you to check out our support site at support.kainexus.com. Doing a quick keyword search of notifications here will give you a whole bunch of resources that you can take advantage of to learn a little bit more about the topic that we presented here today. Looks like we're good on questions. I would definitely want to thank you again for your time today, Jeff. Always a pleasure. I know this is something that is important to you, and so that's why we decided to bring you on. And I learned a lot just listening to you here in the background.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, cool. With all that being said, I'm Adam Darnell. He's Ryan Rippey. He's Jeff Roussel. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.